right, everybody. So there you have it. The judge showed mercy. I don't disagree with the judge in this case because I feel like she did the right thing, in the sense that in acknowledging that the jury uh, get made the guilty by mental defect, and again, as I suspect, that there's really not much that can be done for Chloe Driver besides she will be entitled to have uh, you know, I guess a medical or a medicine regimen while she's in prison. She'll have access to whatever mental health stuff they have at the prison. Um, so uh, I think the judge had to do this. Now, recognize this, guys. 30 years, as some people were pointing out, Susan Smith had parole. She doesn't get out in 30 years. She won't be paroled on the first parole. But what it does do is, again, as this judge said, there is advances happening all the time and daily in the mental health field. So what could be here in 30 years? Um, who knows? And I think the judge did the right thing here because this does not guarantee she ever gets out. This just guarantees that, as I have always said, I feel like there should always be a parole possibility on every sentence because that makes the prisoner have something to work for. It makes them invest in programs and things that not only helps them, but helps us understand them. And that's really helpful to society because even if they never get out, even if they never get repaired, even if they're never at a point where we feel comfortable letting them walk free among society, we've at least gotten an understanding of what made them do what they did. And in this case, we would like to understand why she did what she did. What happened? I think we know there's problems. I think we know she was obviously influenced by the man you saw in the courtroom. Now, what I think is horrific is the way these prosecutors conducted themselves in reference to, you've got Benjamin Ben Michael Aliyahu, whatever the hell his name is. He's sitting in that courtroom, and he's the cause of this. At the end of the day, it was his restrictions on allowing her to get appropriate help and messing with her mind and controlling her and doing all the shit he did to her that ultimately led to that child, getting killed. And yet those prosecutors are coddling him, bringing him in like he's a victim, bringing in his phone messages. They have him right there. So let's ask the state of Georgia, why are handcuffs not on him? Why is he not under arrest for human trafficking? Why is the feds not arresting him for human trafficking? What's going on here? And that prosecutor stands up there and says, oh yeah, we want to go after the mom. We want to go after the victim here. I don't understand why the prosecutors are so tough on the low hanging fruit, right? But you got the guy who did this to her, who abused her for years, the tough case, and they're sitting there allowing him to come in the court and spew his garbage. He should have not even been allowed to come in. And they're arguing for a life sentence without parole. This is ridiculous. And those prosecutors in Cherokee County should be ashamed of themselves. Remember, that's the same prosecuting attorney's office that prosecuted Melody Ferris. And we all saw the sentencing of Melody Ferris, and we all saw that there's problems down there. And we all saw that yet another man got to walk free in that case, and they went after the female. And they went after the woman, and they got a man potentially walking free who might be someone who shot somebody, who failed a lie detector test. This is that same prosecuting attorney's office. So you tell me, why are they going after the females, and they're letting all these men who are involved potentially involved, who walk free, show up at sentencing hearings, testify at trials? They brought that Jason Stiller's guy in or whatnot, and he was in there spewing his crap, and the prosecutor said, yeah, we wanted the jury to see how distasteful he was. This is a guy who's actively abusing and trafficking women right now. Well, he's in jail, but he's already said he's going to, and they're embracing him because they want to go after a mentally deficient woman who was absolutely abused by this cult. And it is absolutely ridiculous that they wouldn't have worked out some sort of, if they were trying to work out a deal, that they wouldn't have tried to work out some sort of deal with Chloe Driver before trial to avoid all of that. And then on top of that, exactly right, Duping Delight pointed out, there's 2 new babies that he's had. He has 2 more children out there with 2 more moms that he's actively abusing right now. Horrible. It's horrifying. And yet, the justice, let's lock up Chloe Driver for the rest of her life because we got the real problem off the street. We took somebody who was subjected to abuse, and if you listen to him, she was subjected to abuse as a child. She was an individual who was ripe for manipulation, and we took that person and we threw him away, and we left the manipulator in the street so he could go after other women at bus stops. Well, Laurie, the problem with what you're saying there is that we have women who are, again, they're mentally beaten up. The whole point is the manipulation factor. It's like there's a reason why the prosecutors wanted to put Diddy in jail without bail, because they needed people to come forward. When the person's out in the street and the manipulator's calling the jail, and he should have been taken off her jail list. They shouldn't have allowed him to call her. They should have said, this is a guy who manipulated her to the point that she killed her baby. Well, Jamie, most people, it's not that she was abused that they go on to kill their children. It's that if you listen to this guy on the stand, okay, she had a obvious mental illness that this guy was taking advantage of and convincing her of stuff. And that's what got here. You're right. Most people are abused don't always necessarily suffer from severe mental illness to the degree that she did. So, what you're saying there is not an apples to apples comparison. What we have here is a person who was abused, who had mental illness, who probably had that. There's a wealth of data to suggest that mental illness runs in families and is a genetic situation. So she's had some underlying mental illnesses. She's subject to abuse, and then she's subject to manipulation, not just by him, but by that other guy. And she's put through this, and then she's given the CBD or whatever the hell it was they were giving her, right? And all this stuff manifests, and she's told to go be alone with this baby. And then she does what she does. Now, does that excuse her? No. Am I arguing with the fact that she necessarily is serving time and that she's got a 30-year to life? No, not at all. She should be there because she's not safe for society. But I'm arguing with the fact that we don't excuse the individual who is out there actively preying on other people and other women to try to who could create the same situations. And he clearly has no self-awareness of what he's doing. So he's not going to stop. And he's out there in his Ben Eliyahu's crazy world. Well, nobody's giving her sympathy, though, Jamie. See, you're confusing sympathy with recognition of issues. If it was a man, if it was a woman, it doesn't matter. What we're giving recognition to here is the mental illness aspect. And if you fail to do that, then you don't. The whole issue is that when we're looking in corrections and we're looking at taking care of a problem like this, it's supposed to be right. One of it is deterrence. You can't deter something from happening if you don't understand why it happens. And if you want to ignore it because you say what they did was so heinous that we have to ignore the mental illness and ignore these factors. But we have a guy right now who is out there in the street doing the same things he did to her to other women, having more kids. And it is terrible. And it is dangerous. And there will be other children that will get killed. And my thing is we bring him into court and say, oh, yeah, have at it. They're not blocking handcuffs. They should have made a deal with her to bring him in and get him arrested. And that's what her defense attorneys were talking about. And yet everyone's all happy because well, we held her accountable and locked her up for life. but we still have the big threat. The threat, the actual threat, is still in the street. You know, that's the problem. Well, Lori, I think, did you miss the part where her attorneys were talking about that they had her at the table? She sat down with prosecutors. She proffered an entire statement that was enough to go out and get him, and the prosecutors were not interested because they didn't want to give her whatever sentence that the defense was looking for that. That they wanted they wanted them to come down in their sentence, and they were stuck on 30 to life, and instead I'm not sure, the defense didn't get into specifics. So she was willing to prosecute. The state wasn't willing to cut a deal, and with the recognition of what her role was in all of this, and say, hey, let's cut a deal that tries to show this and gets her the help she needs and whatever. But at the most important thing, gets this guy off the street. You know, because he should be locked up 110%. No question about it. So, oh yeah, and don't get me started. You're right on that, Duping Delight, because his ex was a absolutely shining example of an abused woman, and you saw what he did to her, and she got away from him. Remember that she was the first, right? And then Chloe Driver was the advancement. But again, that young lady wasn't as mentally ill, or didn't have the mental illness, the underlying mental illness that Chloe Driver did. But it's dangerous because he will find others. But you saw his all crazy crap that they envisioned all this stuff for 2.5 years before pregnancy and all this garbage. I mean, the guy is dangerous. The guy is dangerous. So, with that said, guys, we are about to see closing arguments in the Ferlazzo trial. That's where you all will be sent if you hang around. And then, of course, we've got the baby trial, the baby beaten trial that's going on as well. That's in testimony right now. But the Ferlazzo case, after lunch, will be going to closings, and then we'll be going to jury deliberations. So stick around for that. And, hey, listen, I think the judge did a great job here. Absolutely agree with what the judge did here. I think it was a great sentence. I hope the prosecutors or the federal prosecutors or somebody gets on the ball here and addresses the real problem in that room, because there was a guy that was there who was the real problem, in my opinion. And he's walking out right now. He's breathing fresh air. And I think that should change if we want to make sure this never happens again. Thank you, Michael Rocky. I appreciate it. Thank you, Adair. I appreciate it. Thank you, Under Your Scars. Michelle, thank you. EMC, Duping Delight. Everybody I can see up on screen. Everybody that came in the chat, everyone that came and watched with me, very much appreciate you. We're going to be taking you over to the Ferlazzo trial if you stick around. And thank you, cute little kitten. I appreciate that. And we will see you shortly.